Hallelujah. Shalom, family. Greetings to the 12 tribes of Yisrael scattered abroad. In this video, we're going to discuss what's called the Last Supper or the Lord's Supper. And we're going to talk about what it is and what it is not as we endeavor to return to the ancient pathways, to return to the customs of our ancient Israelite ancestors and return to the Torah of Yahuwah. 1 Corinthians chapter 11, speaking about the Lord's Supper, Shaul or Paul wrote, "For I have received of the Master that which also I delivered unto you, that the Master Yahusha, the same night in which he was betrayed, took bread. And when he had given thanks, he brake it and said, Take, eat, this is my body, which is broken for you. This do in remembrance of me. After the same manner also he took the cup, when he had supped, saying, This cup is the New Testament in my blood. This do you, as oft as you drink it, in remembrance of me. For as often as you eat this bread and drink this cup, you do show the Master's death till he come." Concerning the commemoration of what's called the Last Supper, Shaul or Paul in 1 Corinthians refers to the commemoration as the Lord's Supper or the Master's Supper. In the Didache, it refers to the same commemoration as the Eucharist, which is the Greek word for Thanksgiving. So unlike the holiday of Thanksgiving in the United States, which celebrates the murder of the Native Americans, this memorial of Thanksgiving for the Israelites commemorates the renewing of the covenant between Yahuwah and Israel. So if we take that word Thanksgiving into the Hebrew word is Todah. So we can also refer to this memorial as the memorial of Todah. This memorial is to be celebrated at the beginning of the 14th day of Abib, the dinner meal. And of course, this is a memorial of the death of Yahushua HaMashiach, which happened at the end of the 14th day of Abib. So we have two elements, the bread and the wine. The bread represents the word of Yahuwah. You can look at the scripture references on the screen. You can pause and write them down and do your own Bible study. The wine represents the life and the covenant. Matthew chapter 26. And as they were eating, Yahushua took bread, and the Greek word there is artos, and blessed. Alright, he did not bless the bread. According to Hebrew custom, we bless Yahuwah who gives us food. We do not bless food. So we understand that the it there is italicized, meaning that it was added by the translators. And brake it and gave it to the disciples and said, Take, eat, this is my body." And he took the cup and gave thanks and gave it to them, saying, "Drink you all of it, for this is my blood of the New Testament." And that word there, testament, comes from the Greek diatheke, which is shed for many for the remission of sins. "But I say unto you, I will not drink henceforth of this fruit of the vine until that day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom." So we're going to have to break this down and really understand, what did Yahushua actually institute in this memorial with his disciples? So we saw that the word bread was translated from the Greek artos, and it means bread as raised, or a loaf, bread loaf. So this is not unleavened bread. The word for unleavened bread is a totally different word. So when we look at all the references to the Last Supper, we will see that the word bread that is used is always artos. And the word that is translated as testament is the Greek word diatheke, which means a contract, a covenant. So in other words, testament means covenant. All right, so it can also be translated as covenant. So if Yahushua says that this is the new covenant in my blood, now we need to look at what is the first covenant. Shemot, or Exodus chapter 24. "And he said unto Moshe, Come up unto Yahuwah, you and Aharon and Nadab and Abihu and the 70 elders of Yisrael, and worship you afar off. And Moshe alone shall come near Yahuwah, but they shall not come nigh, neither shall the people go up with him. And Moshe came and told the people all the words of Yahuwah and all the judgments. And all the people answered with one voice and said, All the words which Yahuwah has said will we do. And Moshe wrote all the words of Yahuwah, and rose up early in the morning and built an altar under the hill, and 12 pillars according to the 12 tribes of Yisrael." So here we have the first covenant. And this covenant was between Yahuwah and Yisrael. Yahuwah gave all his laws and commandments through his servant Moshe, and the people agreed to everything that Yahuwah proposed to them in the covenant. They accepted by saying, "Everything that you say, we will do." And he sent young men of the children of Yisrael, which offered burnt offerings and sacrificed peace offerings of oxen unto Yahuwah. And Moshe took half of the blood and put it in basins, and half of the blood he sprinkled on the altar. And he took the book of the covenant and read it in the audience of the people. And they said, "All that Yahuwah has said will we do, and be obedient." And Moshe took olive tau, the blood, and sprinkled it on the people, and said, "Behold, the blood of the covenant, which Yahuwah has made with you concerning all these words." So everything that was in the book of the covenant, everything that was written by Moshe that he received from Yahuwah, that is the covenant. And the blood of the covenant seals the covenant. So in verse 8 we see Aleph Tau, which is not translated in the English, but is there in the Hebrew. And throughout the Tanakh you will find this Aleph Tau in the Hebrew, but in English translations most of them do not translate this. unless you have a translation like the Et Sefer, which actually preserves the Aleph Tau in its translation. Then went up Moshe and Aharon, Nadab and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Yisrael. And they saw Aleph Tau, the Alua of Yisrael, and there was under his feet as it were a paved work of a sapphire stone, and as it were the body of heaven in its clearness. And upon the nobles of the children of Yisrael he laid not his hand. Also they saw Aleph Tau Alaim, and did eat and drink. So these representatives of Yisrael came up with Moses after they agreed to the covenant, and they ate with the Alaim of Yisrael. Now this being that they're eating with is not Yahuwah the Father. As we understand that no one can see Yahuwah and live. So this being that they are eating with is what they call in English the angel of the Lord, or the messenger Yahuwah. This is the messenger or the angel in Hebrew Malach that Yahuwah sent with Israel and placed his name inside him. In other words, this messenger, this being, has the name Yahuwah. And we will see who this being is that's marked in Hebrew as the Aleph and Tau. Revelation chapter 1 verse 8. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the ending, says the Master, which is and which was and which is to come, the Almighty. Revelation was written by Yehuchanan or John, and he was given a revelation of Yahushua HaMashiach. So we understand that Yehuchanan was a Hebrew. He was an Israelite. We also understand that Yahushua HaMashiach is an Israelite, and he speaks Hebrew. And also the angels or the messengers speak Hebrew. Hebrew is the language of heaven. So when we look at Alpha and Omega, Alpha is the first letter in the Greek alphabet, and Omega is the last letter. So if we understand that Yehuchanan actually wrote this revelation originally in the Hebrew language. So the first letter in the Hebrew alphabet is Aleph, and the last letter is Tau. So when Yahushua is saying that he is the Aleph and the Tau, he is revealing that he is that Aleph and Tau that is written in the Tanakh. So when the elders came up to eat and drink with Moshe, and they saw Aleph Tau, the Elohim of Israel, that being was Yahushua HaMashiach before he took human form. So when we look at the first covenant was based on the laws and statutes of Yahuwah that were given to Moses and presented to the people. The people agreed to obey everything that Yahuwah commanded. And that became a contract. Matthew or Matthew chapter 26. And as they were eating, Yahushua took bread and blessed, and brake it, and gave it to the disciples, and said, Take, eat, this is my body. And he took the cup and gave thanks and gave it to them, saying, drink you all of it. For this is my blood of the New Testament, or as we saw, New Covenant, which is shed for many for the remission of sins. But I say unto you, I will not drink henceforth of this fruit of the vine until that day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom. So let's compare this to the first covenant. We saw that the messenger Yahuwah ate and drank with Moshe and the 70 elders. And those 70 elders represented the nation of Israel as a whole. Here we see the messenger of Yahuwah in human form, Yahusha, eating and drinking with his 12 disciples. Those 12 disciples represent the 12 tribes of Israel. So we see that he's taking bread and he's saying that the bread represents his body. He takes the wine and he says that the wine represents his blood, the blood of the New Testament. So remember, at the first covenant, they took the blood and sprinkled it on the people. So this is a return of the same ritual. And he said that I will not drink it until I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom. What is the kingdom of the Father? The kingdom of the Father is the kingdom of Israel. And we'll see that as we go on. Mark chapter 14. And as they did eat, Yahushua took bread and blessed, and brake it and gave to them, and said, take, eat, this is my body. And he took the cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, and they all drank of it. And he said unto them, this is my blood of the New Testament, or covenant, which is shed for many. Verily I say unto you, I will drink no more of the fruit of the vine until that day that I drink it new in the kingdom of Elohim. So again, the kingdom of Elohim is the kingdom of Israel on earth. Israel is the kingdom of Yahuwah on earth. Luke chapter 22. And when the hour was come, he sat down, and the 12 apostles with him. And he said unto them, with desire I have desired to eat this Passover with you before I suffer. So this is the quote that confuses many people about the timing of the Last Supper. What Yahusha is saying here is, I wish I would be able to eat this Passover with you before I suffer. Because when we look at the record, the time that Yahusha was nailed to the stake was the same time that the Passover lambs were being slaughtered. So this Last Supper was the night at the beginning of the 14th day of Abib. The Passover lambs were sacrificed towards the end of the 14th day of Abib, going into the evening. And of course, after sunset is the beginning of the 15th day of Abib, the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And that dinner is actually the dinner where they eat the Passover lamb with the unleavened bread and bitter herbs. For I say unto you, I will not any more eat thereof until it be fulfilled in the kingdom of Elohim. And he took the cup and gave thanks, and said, take this and divide it among yourselves. For I say unto you, I will not drink of the fruit of the vine until the kingdom of Elohim shall come. And he took bread and gave thanks and brake it, and gave unto them, saying, This is my body which is given for you. This do in remembrance of me. Likewise also the cup after supper, saying, This cup is the New Testament or covenant in my blood, which is shed for you. So we see here that Yahushua said, do this in remembrance of me. So this is to be a memorial. And notice that he says, this cup is the New Testament in my blood, which is shed for you. Who is he talking to? He's talking to his 12 disciples who represent the 12 tribes of Yisrael. So he's specifically doing this for a specific people. And we'll see that the first covenant was made between Yahuwah and the nation of Israel. Likewise, the New Testament or the New Covenant also is between Yahuwah and the nation of Israel. Yirmiyahu or Jeremiah chapter 31. Behold, the days come, says Yahuwah, that I will make a new covenant with the house of Yisrael and with the house of Yehudah. So again, we see that the new covenant or New Testament is with the nation of Israel. Not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, which my covenant they break, although I was an husband unto them, says Yahuwah. But this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Yisrael. After those days, says Yahuwah, I will put my Torah in their inward parts, and write it in their hearts, and will be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. So we see that the new covenant is with the house of Israel. So both covenants, the first covenant and the new covenant, both are with the nation of Israel. Remember with Musha, they wrote down all the statutes, laws, and commandments of Yahuwah into a book and presented it to the Israelites. And they said, everything that Yahuwah says we will do. And they were sprinkled with the blood of the covenant. The new covenant is the same covenant. It's the same covenant. It's the same laws, commandments, and statutes. The only difference between the first covenant and the new covenant is that the Torah will be in our inward parts, written in our hearts. That's the only difference between the two covenants. Both covenants are between Yahuwah and the nation of Israel. Both covenants have the same laws, commandments, and statutes. And they shall teach no more every man his neighbor, and every man his brother, saying, Know Yahuwah. For they shall all know me, from the least of them unto the greatest of them, says Yahuwah. For I will forgive their iniquity, and I will remember their sin no more. So again, this is a promise of a New Testament where the Torah is written in the hearts of all Israelites. So this has not been fulfilled yet. So the Lord's Supper or the Last Supper, when we participate in this memorial, we are accepting or agreeing like our ancestors when they said, everything that Yahuwah says we will do. When we drink that cup, when we partake of that bread, we are saying that everything that Yahuwah says all his laws, commandments, and statutes, we will obey them. Thus said Yahuwah, which gives the sun for a light by day, and the ordinances of the moon and of the stars for a light by night, which divides the sea when the waves thereof roar. Yahuwah Tzabaoth is his name. If those ordinances depart from before me, says Yahuwah, then the seed of Israel also shall cease from being a nation before me forever. So again, we see that there's no such thing as replacement theology. The Christian church does not replace the nation of Israel. Both covenants, the new covenant, the first covenant, both were with the nation of Israel. Israel is the kingdom of Elohim on earth. So when we look at the moon goes through her phases. When the moon goes through her cycle, and we see what we call a new moon, the new moon is not a different moon. The new moon is the same moon. It's just being refreshed. So when we look at the wording in English of New Covenant or New Testament, it is not a different covenant. It is the same covenant. It's just being renewed. It's being refreshed. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please click the like button and subscribe and be notified of future videos. Shalom, family.